All right, the winter transfer window closed in England on Monday, and one coach who has been left disappointed is Arsenal's Mikel Arteta after the Gunners failed to make any signings during the period. Arsenal were expected to bring in a replacement for striker Gabriel Jesus, who suffered a season-ending injury last month, while Bukayo Saka is still on the sidelines with a hamstring injury. But manager Arteta says they can't dwell on their failed attempts in the market.
Try your best and you do things with the right process and you see the people that we all share the same intentions and wills, and after you don't achieve it, okay, for sure there are things to learn from it, always are, but you have to move on, you know, and that's a piece that, okay, was important in the moment, and now we have to move on, and nobody knows whether it's better to done it or not. We will know probably at the end of the season.
Yeah, Mikel Arteta saying they can't dwell on the fact that they didn't make any signings during the January transfer window. So how is this likely to impact Arsenal's push for a first Premier League title in 22 years? Remember, they are currently second on 50 points. Following Sunday's 5-1 thrashing of Manchester City, they are 6 points behind leaders Liverpool, who have a game in hand. That game will be against Everton next Wednesday, the 12th of February. All right, let's get some answers then from our football correspondent, 2006 Soccer Warriors World Cup defender Brent Sancho. He'll join us shortly, so we'll get to him. But Lance and Mariah, you know, when I didn't watch the Manchester City-Arsenal game on Sunday because I was at the Davis Cup tennis, but when I checked the scores and I saw 5-1, the first thing I checked for, who scored the goals for Arsenal. And
because you play fantasy football,
no, because there's no Saka, there's no Jesus.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that is an issue that they were hoping to correct in the transfer window to that point, and clearly by the end of the window they had not made any signings either. So it was like, whoa, 5 goals against Manchester City. Who is the new star? Well, 5 different scorers in that match. And then I started thinking, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Because do you want that one central striker? We've seen in the past, and of course, you know, we all know that Mikel Arteta was the assistant to Pep Guardiola. And I remember the season, for example, when Pep didn't have a number 9. I think that was after Aguero. And Gundogan scored a lot of goals that campaign, and how Pep, you know, continuously played without a number 9, but City still got a lot of goals. And so I'm thinking, well, maybe Arteta has learned well. Maybe it's not such a big deal for him that he may not have that out-and-out striker. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, so based on what you said a lot. It's many different aspects to process. So the first thing leading up, you asked about, you know, if they should have done a lot more in the transfer window, right?
Well, no. Well, they tried, as Arteta pointed out. They just did not have success.
Right. But based on what we would have seen against Manchester City now, I'm starting, Ricardo, to think that, you know, maybe they're going to get the goals from other players, and that although a lot of their players are, the regular suspects are out because of injury, I'd start to think that maybe they don't have a problem. They don't have an issue where that is concerned. And you never know, it might work themselves out. But one of the things about Arsenal, when I think about them, and it's judging on the history, right? It's not the first time that Arsenal has been in this position where they've been second and they're, you know, tipped to take over from the leading place. They've been, let's just say, in second position just by 2 points. And, you know, it's only a matter of time, and everybody's expecting them because all of their players are firing. So for me, it comes back down to if at the back end of the season, if Arsenal can keep up the momentum that they start the season with usually. And I tend to think that that never happens. And it's why, you know, people joke and stuff and say that they're always the bridesmaid, never the bride, because of the fact that when it gets tough, they're unable to close it in. And I'm now thinking that they have hope from these young players that are stepping up.
Well, the one thing I'd say is that to close the deal, you need the right pieces to complete the puzzle.
Yes, of
And
course.
the question at this stage is whether Arsenal have the right pieces to complete this puzzle. All right, we have Brent Sancho with us. Brent, it's a pleasure to have you as usual. We're having this Arsenal discussion. No signings in the winter transfer window, and on the face of it, doesn't look like a significant problem, especially if you just watch the game against Manchester City on Sunday. But what do you make of this situation, Brent? Jesus is out. Saka is not coming back for another month or so. So some would say a lot to worry about. What do you say?
It is a problem that has provoked Arsenal for quite some time, probably 2 or 3 years, that they need a 20-plus goal striker. So this is not a no problem for Arsenal. It has been a problem. And a result against Manchester City, albeit a very good one, they scored 5 goals. It still does not, of course, take care of the issue of getting a striker. I think getting a striker in the January window, which I consider to be more of a reactive window, is certainly where you don't want to be. I think the question is why they haven't done it for the last 2 or 3 years, why they haven't gone out and gotten that striker. The January window does put a punctuation to it, does, of course, continue to highlight it. But it's been an ongoing problem, and it's a problem that if they don't do it again in the summer, that we'll still be talking about.
Is it an issue, or is it the case that they just can't find what they are looking for? Because based on what Mikel Arteta said, it's not for a lack of trying.
Yeah, it's a market, of course, that a striker, as we all know, is a premium commodity when it comes to football. And particularly the kind of striker that Arsenal needs, the type of striker you would imagine would catch quite a significant sum of money. And when you look in the market and you look at the way that Arsenal wants to play and the type of striker they would need, there's not a lot out there as it relates. Yes, you can throw names within the hat.
They did go for Ollie Watkins, didn't they? Unsuccessfully, of course.
Yeah, they try Ollie Watkins, who is someone I think would fit in what they want. But I still do, Ricardo, question whether or not Ollie Watkins is a world-class striker. I do wonder if he can win them a Champions League. You do wonder if Ollie Watkins can win them Premiership titles year after year after year. Because that's what they need, isn't it, really? It is a world-class striker. And we're not just talking about someone that's done well in a particular league or someone that is up and coming. They need someone that is established and is a world-class striker. So when you look at the market, it's not a lot out there. There's not a lot that you could pry. Yes, there are players, but they are very comfortable within, of course, their situations with their club. So I think Arteta, yes, may be looking, and he's right. It's not for a lack of trying. They haven't found the right mold. But at some point, guys, they're going to have to trigger this. They're going to have to make it, because not every year we can sit here and talk about Arsenal challenging for the title or challenging for other trophies because of a lack of striker. So somewhere along the line, they're going to have to make that jump or make that situation or make that decision.
Yeah, against that background, Brent, how would you assess the performance against Manchester City on Sunday, scoring 5 goals, 4 of them in the second half of that encounter? Was it more about Arsenal's quality on the day, or more about what we have seen from Manchester City in the last 2.5 months? They just have those days where they are below par.
I may go with the latter, and maybe just slightly. I think Manchester City capitulated. We all know Arsenal is going to press high up the park. We all know they're an excellent team in transition. They do have midfielders that have the legs. I thought Declan Rice was outstanding in his positional play, and his of course, making those passes, his assists that he had throughout the game. That's what you come to expect from Arsenal. But let's, of course, put that up against how poor City was. And they really were poor. And it's not a poor that we of course, have now come accustomed to seeing. We saw it in the PSG game where they capitulated after being 2 goals up. And we've seen these sorts of performances from City. Again, I'm not trying to take away from Arsenal, because, as I said, it slightly shades that I think it's more down to the way that City folded at the end. Give Arsenal credit for what they do. That is what they normally do. But I don't think it was an extra special game from Arsenal that beat City. It was really the latter in which I thought City capitulated. And again, I have to add, the capitulation from City came from a known entity, which is the Arsenal press and ability to pressure teams high up the park.
Yeah, and before you joined the discussion, Brent, you know, Ricardo and I were chatting, and one of the things I brought up was the fact that, you know, Arsenal has been in this position many times before where it looked as if they were going to close it out, they were going to take the EPL title, and then, of course, something happens and they're unable to seal it. Is this the year where Arsenal can finish as EPL champions?
It's a tough one. I think it's very tough. When you look at where Liverpool is positioned right now, game in hand, if they do win that game, I think it's about 9 or so points plus that they'll go ahead, and that's a big ask. That's a lot of games when you come at this level. And what we've seen from Liverpool as well, Mariah, they've been outstanding. They've been able, of course, to set the standard at very, very high, and we've not seen many slip-ups from Liverpool. So for me, as I said, 9 points clear. It's a tough ask for an Arsenal team. We talked about some of the deficiencies that they have in the striking department. They would have to play out of their skins, Arsenal, and will have to hope that a Liverpool side of Liverpool that we haven't seen so far for this season comes to fruition, which I really don't see happening. So I do think it'll be a very difficult proposition to overturn Liverpool.
Yeah, and as I look on the table, Aston Villa in 8th position, not seeing Manchester United anywhere on that table. We're only showing the top 10, so Manchester United would, of course, be after number 10. Brent, let's talk a bit about the man, Marcus Rashford, of course, on loan now to Aston Villa, with the option to, of course, purchase him for $40 million. When you saw the news, expected, unexpected, and how does he fit in at Aston Villa?
Look, I think it's expected when, of course, you listened to Amarin's, some of his mutterings coming out of Manchester United. And this is really down to Marcus Rashford. He's the one that has to perform. There's a lot of question marks, and rightfully so, over Marcus Rashford. I think he's a very good striker. I don't think he's world-class, but I think he's a good striker. But he somehow lost himself in Manchester United, gave that interview, which I thought was very foolish of him, and we've seen him in different scenarios where he shouldn't be, especially in the current situation of Manchester United. But now he's gotten a chance. He's gone to an Aston Villa team that seemingly has a very good culture, a good environment, a good manager in Unai Emery, and of course in a situation where he can play off the wide side of things, whether it's him or Leon Bailey, there is options there. He can play through the middle. So he will have his chances. The point I'm making, he will have his chances. But it comes down to Marcus Rashford, because now he's in a situation where everyone is going to be looking at him because he's pointed the finger at Manchester United for his slump in form. Everyone is going to be looking at him in a situation that is designed for him in the sense that, of course, the current situation at Aston Villa and whether or not he can perform.
Yeah, and under the boss, Unai Emery, based on what you know of both of them, how does that one work, the relationship?
He set about his business, and remember when Unai Emery came in, he took a very lowly Aston Villa team, rebuilt that team very quickly, and set very strong boundaries, lines, whatever you want to call it. But he has a very much structured and very well determined way that he wants to play, and he's very clear cut in how he wants to play as well. So I think for Marcus Rashford, he's coming into a situation that is well patterned and is well defined, and is a situation where he comes in and there will be no ambiguity as to what is expected from him. So it's a good environment. It's a place set up for him to do well. Again, I go back to the fact, does Marcus Rashford have the appetite? Does he now recognize and understand that this is an opportunity for him to kickstart or restart his career? It all comes on his shoulder. There's no more excuses. There's no more conversation about the poor culture or the poor situation in Manchester United. It really comes down to Marcus Rashford, and can he find the form that brought him to prominence?
Yeah, Brent, I digress in terms of league, but not in terms of topic, because Anthony, well, he's left Manchester United. First game at Real Betis, an MVP performance, and so everybody is saying clearly Manchester United is the problem. So guess what? Marcus Rashford is going to go to Aston Villa. He's going to score a lot of goals, look like a genius, and Manchester United will continue to look like a club that is, yes,
not in the top 10.
I don't want to use the adjective I was thinking. Go ahead, Brett.
No, listen, it's well defined. We've spoken about it many times in this program, the challenges at Manchester United. I think with Amarin, it's certainly, facing it head on and trying to obviously trying to solve some of the challenges. It is a situation that's not going to change overnight, and players will leave Manchester United and go to other situations and perform. That's part and parcel of football. That's the sport. However, it doesn't define the fact that they did struggle at Manchester United. And as I've said many times before in this program, many players would go to Manchester United and struggle because of the environment. There's no hiding that. But so you do wish these players to go on and do well. No one, I certainly don't think that because they've struggled at Manchester United, they're not a good player. As I said, Marcus Rashford is certainly a good player, and Anthony has had a good time at Ajax. He certainly didn't enjoy it. And we could go back where there's Di Maria, and the list goes on and on and on of players that with Manchester United and struggled. So I'm not surprised that Anthony comes out of the block in his first game and perform. There's a lot there for him to want to perform and prove everyone wrong. But it does not disguise or change the fact that there is a very dire situation in Manchester United that needs changing sooner rather than later.
Yeah, very much the case. I think we've spoken too much about Manchester United, Brent Sancho. We really need to focus on the top teams when we have these EPL discussions. As usual, Brent, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I'm sure we'll chat again sometime soon when Arsenal fail to win the EPL again. Take care, Brent. Break time on the SportsMax Zone. The second zone update plus a track and field discussion to come. Stay with us.